I want to send thanks to our team, and thank you, David, to your team at the James for supporting us in this work and really helping us develop what we want to be the best possible experience under the circumstances and guidelines that we're living under. But we know Pelotonia is sort of built on this amazing experience, and that's what we expect to deliver to everybody this year. So safety is our priority. I want to sort of kick it over to you, David, and sort of give you the chance to share the current state of CDC guidelines, where things stand related to outdoor events, because that has informed how we are really planning for the event. And sort of to make note before you dive into that, I think everybody's aware we're living in sort of an ever-changing world related to guidelines. And the guidelines that existed in February when we announced ride registration and our initial safety plans have evolved tremendously. And our commitment to the community remains and will remain through August, is evolving with those guidelines. And so we're going to follow the guidelines as they're laid out, but we are willing to evolve and change as those guidelines progress. So with that, I'll turn it to you and to share your perspective on things.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. And again, thanks for having me here. Just briefly, I have ridden in Pelotonia every year. It is my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite event. You know, as an oncologist that works at the James, I know firsthand how important it is to raise money for cancer research. And so I am truly committed to this cause. And it's been a pleasure to work with you and your team to make sure that you're delivering on the safest and best ride experience or Pelotonia experience that you could have. And so it's funny, through the pandemic, you know, we've been now 14 months into this. The song that keeps coming into my head is Paul McCartney's Live and Let Live, and the line of the ever-changing world in which we live in. And you mentioned that about 3 times before. And it's so true, is that things have evolved and changed literally weekly, monthly, daily sometimes. And so being adaptable is the key to success and making sure that you're able to execute on this plan. A lot of the things that we started off 14 months ago talking about still hold, you know, of be safe, try to figure out what your environment looks like and minimize the risk, and then do what you can to personally protect yourself and to protect society. And when you think about those 3 principles, it really helps to define kind of what we're doing at this moment. And that is that in most environments, it's stay 6 feet apart from somebody, wear a mask. Those things will minimize that someone infects you or you infect somebody else. Wash your hands, because you can certainly pick up, you know, things that are somewhere and transmit them elsewhere. So those things are still a reasonable safety plan for everything that we do in daily life. You know, be away from poorly ventilated areas is another principle, because in a poorly ventilated area where you can't control your environment, you don't know who else is there, that's a risky environment to be in. And so trying to control that is a general core principle that remains. And then the last piece is take care of yourself and others through vaccination. And I'm going to put vaccination aside for a moment, because I'm going to kind of do my personal plea to everybody out there who's able to be vaccinated to do so. And we'll talk about that in a second. But as it relates to what Pelotonia looks like, I want to focus on the pieces about poorly ventilated areas. We know that in the circumstances where you are outdoors, that is not a poorly ventilated area. And so being on a bike ride during Pelotonia doesn't meet that criteria of poor ventilation. And so that's an area where, for most people, you can be relatively safe by being out and about. And so I think that's really important to recognize. There are some people still that are, you know, that may be ill and at risk for getting COVID or complications from COVID who shouldn't be in that environment, you know, mixing with others that you don't know. And that still will be the case. But for most people, being outdoors is acceptable. And very interestingly, the CDC went back on a guideline just a few weeks ago that said that for vaccinated folks, you can be outdoors without a mask safely. And so that's a really important component as well. And that kind of leads to the piece about, like, if you're thinking about riding or participating as a volunteer in Pelotonia or doing anything in a crowd, being vaccinated is the safest way to do that. And by that, it means that, you know, being 2 weeks after your second dose of an mRNA vaccine, or 2 weeks after your single Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine, those are the safest times. That's when you're fully vaccinated. And that's when you can be outdoors without a mask. That's when you can be indoors with individuals from your own family without a mask, even if they're unvaccinated, or indoors with vaccinated folks very safely. And so that's kind of the carrot out there in many ways for vaccination, is that life will head towards what may be normal for the future is once somebody is vaccinated. And that's one thing that all of everybody that's participating in Pelotonia, as a rider, as a volunteer, doing a challenge, or anybody who is existing during the pandemic. If you're vaccinated, there are some freedoms that you're going to be afforded that you wouldn't be otherwise if you were unvaccinated. And so that's a reason to do it. Vaccines are safe. Vaccines have been proven to be effective about preventing severe illness or death from COVID. And so it's something I personally am vaccinated and feel very comfortable with that. My kids are vaccinated. My spouse is vaccinated, and we encourage everybody to do so. So those are the current CDC guidelines, Joe. Back to you.
Perfect. So I appreciate all that context. I think, as we look at that and we, speak with other race event organizers, an hour ago, I was just on a call with the Hincapie family, who just had their big Grand Fondo in Chattanooga this past weekend. And so we're continuing to learn from every event that's happening. There's a couple Ironman events happening in the next couple of weeks that we're going to continue to learn from them. And, I think what we've learned is this event world is really a community of people that want to see events happen. And so we're really trying to share best practices and protocols across the board. And a couple things that we're seeing at all events that are being really successful right now, and particularly focused on rides, there's going to be instances where we're going to require face masks. And so as the guidance stands today, this is what we feel like is in the best interest of the community. And so that's going to look like at starts, when you're in the chute and you're around people, at rest stops, same thing when you're in close proximity to people, and finishes, same thing. And so, we're going to rely on people to use their best judgment and sort of do the right thing when they're in these situations. If you're outside and you're away from people and socially distanced, wearing a mask is, someone's not going to come over and yell at you to wear a mask at Pelotonia, but we do ask when we're in these close proximity quarters that people will be wearing masks. Cleaning and sanitizing is probably the world's most profitable business over the last year. Be a lot of cleaning and sanitizing throughout the weekend. We're going to be doing a lot of things to provide natural social distancing. So when you think of finish line tents, when you think of the morning breakfast tent, at the start, the tents we're going to rent are going to be bigger, and they're going to be much bigger, and tables are going to be spaced out, and we are going to provide just much more space for people. We are not going to force, many collisions of people throughout the weekend. One-way traffic patterns is something really interesting going on in the event space right now. And it's a very simple tweak that we can make in nearly every aspect of the event, but makes a really big difference. And so when you think about a rest stop, or you think about the buffet line at a finish line, historically you've been able to come at the rest stop table from 20 different angles and just, come upon it and grab your peanut butter and jelly. We're going to have more one-way traffic to really promote distancing. And then hand sanitizer and hand washing stations. This is something we typically have a lot of, actually, through a typical ride experience. You're going to see a lot more this year, which I think we've all gotten used to seeing hand sanitizer at every turn in a public place. So we're seeing a lot of that. It's been a couple decisions we've made and we have communicated, but want to reiterate, of things that we've eliminated and that we aren't going to bring back, and we've changed for this year. So we're not doing overnight stays at Kenyon College. We just didn't feel that it was the right time, right place to be putting people in the dorm rooms together with strangers. And so that's one of the reasons we changed the format of some of the routes. We're not going to do massages at the finish lines this year as a safety precaution, and eliminating shower facilities as well. So we've typically had these shared shower facilities, which frankly would be a nightmare to manage, at this point and under the current protocol. So those are a couple of things we've eliminated. And then as we go through this evening and we go through some of these, I call them sections of the weekend, you'll see we still have open items. So we have not figured everything out. We continue to work and to plan, and there are some things that we do not have the answers for. We will have the answers soon, but we don't have them tonight. And I think my goal for tonight is for this to be as transparent as possible for the community. And so I know the chat is active tonight, so people are free to pop some questions in there. We'll be managing it. But now we're going to turn it over. Carolyn is going to put up a poll. We're going to give everybody 30 seconds to vote, and we're going to just launch into this, putting us on the spot from a protocol standpoint. And it turns out that us as panelists cannot vote.
Oh, I did not know that when I signed up for this, Joe.
It's disappointing. I'm so curious what's gonna be the winner. Opening ceremony. Okay, I thought this might be the one that would be the leading horse. So opening ceremony, as it stands right now, is the biggest open item for us. And so what we can say is we will not have the typical opening ceremony experience where we close down North Bank Park and McPherson Commons and put 15,000 people shoulder to shoulder for a program in the middle of the streets. That is not going to happen this year. What we are planning on and trying to do is how we have a handful of different experiences, in-person, sort of safe outdoor experiences in combination with a program that is live and also streamed over the internet for people that would care to watch it virtually. So we had a meeting on that this morning with our team. We anticipate over the next week or two really sort of determining the path that we're going to take for opening ceremony. But as of right now, that's sort of number one item that's an open item for our team. So we'll go to poll number 2. Here we go. This is the second most popular part of Pelotonia. Should play like Jeopardy music.
You could sing.
I could not sing. Starting on experiences. So this is one of the biggest areas that we've had to make changes on. And after talking with the Hincapie folks today and some of the other ride organizers that were on that call, this is, I think, every ride organizer's challenge right now, and it becomes a bigger challenge the more people you have. So what we know that we're going to do is we are spacing out the starting shoot window. So in years past, it's gone from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. We get 8,000 riders out on the road in that window, and sort of off with it they go. What we're doing this year is we're going to extend that window. And so call it 7 a.m. to noon. We are going to have 2 different starting locations downtown. So we're going to do North Bank Park, McPherson Commons area in the Arena District, and also have a smaller starting venue over at Columbus Commons. And those sort of 2 starts will meet about a mile out on the route from an experience standpoint. So that lets us spread people out. We're going to have 30-minute windows of staging of people starting, and there's going to be stickers on the road to provide distance and sort of indications of where to stand. This is, it's extremely complicated. Our team is lucky enough to work with some of our colleagues over at Ohio State and the student move-in team who deals with this every semester on the university, and how they coordinate the coming and going of students and the service elevators and the entrances and the moving carts and all of those things for all the different dorm rooms. So we're coordinating and working on both a communications plan and a logistics plan to make that go smoothly. And I think the one big question that is often coming with us sharing the start and staging change is, can you schedule to be with, a friend, a colleague? We're working through that now. What we can say is right now, the preferred method we see us going towards is grouping people by Peloton. And we recognize that not everybody rides, that not everybody who rides together rides on the same Peloton. And we're going to do our best to sort of make accommodations for people, but that is one area we are going to have to be really, I think, pretty rigid and tight on to execute it really well and safely for everybody. And that is when you think of the entire weekend, that is one of the biggest potential points of failure for us. And so we're gonna really try to manage that like hawks.
And Joe, while there's another poll going up, I would just add to that is that when you think of risk and controlling environment, this is one of those places that there's going to be a critical focus on safety. And I think that the approach that you've taken is exactly where it needs to be. It's hard. This is going to be different than before, but it's different in exactly the right way when you think about, mitigating risk, controlling environment, and making sure that it's done safely. I think that's the key.
I think I know which one's going to be next. We can bet lunch on it.
Rest stops.
Ooh,
I would have been wrong.
I knew it was going to be finish line.
I was going to guess rest stops. Man.
So finish line is one that I'm super excited about. And this is, I think, probably the one component of Ride Weekend internally that we've really changed and evolved as protocols have changed. So, back during the winter, really, September, October, November, we were seeing the surge in COVID. As we were planning, we were thinking that we were going to have to take finish line celebrations completely offline and not do them. And we're happy to report that's not the case. And actually, we're going to be able to deliver a finish line experience that is not super dissimilar from previous experiences, but we're making a couple of these really small tweaks. So we're going to have a much larger tented area, spaced out tables. We're going to have, more volunteers cleaning, sort of turning the tables, so to speak. A really big change that is really a food and beverage change for the entire weekend. So rest stops, starting line, everything, is the idea of being handed and served food from a volunteer that's wearing a mask and wearing gloves, as opposed to people just reaching in the peanut butter and jelly jar, the orange slices or the bananas, really trying to minimize any of that contamination and contact and sort of do that in a very safe manner. You had given me the example last week of, the Whole Foods salad bar is open. You go to Brassica or you go to Chipotle, and that sort of buffet line style is back and open because it's deemed to be safe. And so that is one of the big things we'll do with food and beverage. There will be adult beverages. That's a question we've gotten a fair amount of time, is, are we going to have to eliminate beer and wine? The answer is no, we will have that. We're going to just use every opportunity we can to create sort of one-way traffic. There's going to be a lot more signage this year. If you think there's been a lot of signs in previous Pelotonias, there's going to be a lot more signs this year directing people where to go. And then from a spectator standpoint, this is a question we've gotten, and I think this might have been a question that was thrown in the advanced Q&A, is if there will be a limit on spectators. And the answer is no. And we're not going to limit spectators. We feel like our finish line areas are typically very spread out and have a lot of space. One change we are going to make is that we're going to actually bring out some food and beverage to the spectators. And so historically, spectators, if they've wanted water, if they've wanted to, go grab a granola bar, a bag of chips, a snack, they're waiting for, sometimes a couple hours out there. They've been sort of forced to go into the tented, fenced off area, pay the $20 and go in and grab a snack. And one of the ways we think we can help accommodate the spacing of more people and just keeping more people interested and over at the finish lines is to have stations spaced out throughout the finish line with food and beverage. And I think that'll be a really positive change, but the answer to a limit on spectators is no. So that is what finish lines will look like. I think it's super exciting to be able to deliver something that's really close to the traditional experience.
And I think, again, that's, Pelotonia has taken a very creative approach to finding angles to mitigate risk. Same exact theme throughout that everybody's hearing is, how do you keep everybody safe, appropriately distanced? How do you do it in a way that still has that very important experience that Pelotonia is known for? And I think that keeps people coming back and keeps them engaged. So I'm excited.
Yep. Speaking of the experience, a question in the chat about Flip Cup. So I think we will probably outlaw Flip Cup at the end of the evening on Saturday and Sunday, but really good question. So
we may work on the CDC to see if they can change their policy on Flip Cup before then.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what the next one is. Rest stops. So I think a lot of the changes we're going to make at rest stops is duplicative and sort of fits in line with what we were just sharing about finish lines. What you're going to see at rest stops is more spaced out things. So the medical tent, where you store your bikes, where the food is, where the beverages are, where the toilets are, and the hand sanitizing is typically, we've tried to cram as much of that into a tight space as we possibly can. This year, we're really just trying to space that out. Things like the food line, the medical tent, things like that are going to have one-way sort of through paths, and there will be a beginning and an end to the food line that you can walk through and be served. We'll have the water monsters available, which is what those massive blue water dispensing coolers are called. They're actually called water monsters. And so we're going to have those available, and we're also going to have canned water. And so this was like a really big area that we wanted to be thoughtful about and think through, which was, that water monster experience doesn't make everybody feel comfortable. And sort of whether it's safe or not, I think you can sort of throw out the debate on that. At that point, it's a comfort level with people. And so we wanted to provide as much optionality for people as we can. And so what we're doing with water and beverages at rest stops is having both canned water, because we want to reduce as much single waste plastic as we can. So we're going to have aluminum canned water, and then we're going to have these water monsters. Similar for the food, for us to really try to have an experience where there's prepackaged food and there's prepared food. Regardless, it's being handed to you by somebody else, but sort of bringing in that optionality for people that have different comfort levels to still have a really good experience. Make sure I covered everything. Gatorade and sports nutrition powder, we've typically had, sort of big Gatorade jugs and single-use powders. We're going to have a lot more powders on hand this year for people to mix their own drinks. I think that covers my rest stop. Yes, you'll be able to wait for someone at a rest stop if you don't start together. That will be fine. This is where it gets hard to choose what's going to come next. Transportation, that is a big one. That is one we've had lots and lots of questions about. So the historical Pelotonia experience has been where, at the finish line, we've got the bike trucks, and you put your bike on in the back of a semi or box truck. Your bike gets taken back to the starting line, and then, people hang out for a while, and a lot of people take the coach buses back to the starting line. So we will have transportation. It will be in a more limited capacity. So the coach buses that we use are going to run at 50% capacity. We'll try to open windows where we can, and but the total capacity of the busing that we will have will be less than typical years. And so what I would ask of people is to plan accordingly. And if they think that they can have, a car ready for them or somebody to come pick them up, that's just going to be easier than trying to rely on the transportation, but we will have transportation for people. Related to the bikes and the bike trucks, this is another sort of, I think, big change in really relates to the spacing out of the chutes and the time frame that we need to space out the chutes. Instead of sending everyone in a 2-hour block, we're sending everyone in a 5 or 6 hour block. What that creates is sort of a longer lead time of bikes, getting to the finish line, and then those bikes getting back to the starting line. And so where it stands right now, and sort of the solution we've come up with is that bikes will be available all at McPherson Commons the next day. And so we are going to do everything we can to get those bikes back down to McPherson Commons as quickly as we possibly can. But we're in a situation, just given the logistics and some of the nuances of how those bikes get packed, and to make sure not to damage bikes by only filling the trucks partially the way full, that we can't guarantee your bike will be there that same day. We can guarantee your bike will be there on the next day for pickup, and we will have security and all the protection needed under tents and everything for the bikes. But as it stands right now, we're in a position where we're not going to be able to guarantee that your bike will be there the next day. We do know that we have a fair amount of out-of-town riders, and we also have a fair amount of group blocks, blocks where people rent bikes or borrow bikes from their Peloton. And we are sort of open to making special arrangements in those cases. We just ask that you email our office, pelotonia@pelotonia.org, to coordinate that. So one of the questions, well, everybody's voting, so overnight corrals will be available or not. So we're not going to be doing overnight bike drop-off. There'll be no Friday bike drop-off this year, and a lot of that's as a result of not having a mass single site opening ceremony. Evelyn, might they be available the same day? Possibly, and we are going to do everything we can to make that happen. It's just the act of being able to guarantee your bike's going to be there is going to be tough same day. Food and beverage. So I think we've actually covered this one. I think thinking about food and beverage in very simple manner, we're going to give people options, prepackaged versus sort of the standard experience. What is going to change regardless is that somebody's going to be handing you your food, and you're not going to be diving into a tray of peanut butter and jelly. So similar on the beverage side, we're going to provide options for people.
Just to emphasize, Joe, will there be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
There will be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I don't think it's legal in the state of Ohio to have a bike ride without peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Perfect. Just want to make sure everybody heard that.
Lee, we're getting to the routes. We're getting to the routes. I know that's what everyone's waiting for. But in order to get the routes, you got to hear some of these safety administrative things. So we can be quick. We can be quick with these. Everybody vote credentials. That's a really fun one. Look at that. Influence. Influencing the vote right there. So credentials. So this is a really fun change we've been wanting to make for a couple of years. So we're doing a couple new things with credentials this year. One is we're going to be mailing credentials out in advance. And so everybody's going to receive a box. It is not going to be a simple plain white envelope with your credentials in it. It is going to be a very fun unboxing experience. that will meet and exceed the standards you've come to know of Pelotonia. And so that's how you're going to be receiving your credentials this year. For people that do sign up late, we will sort of make accommodations and have on-site pickup, but our hope is that people are registering now and early and get to be a part of that unboxing experience, which for those of you that have young kids, that is apparently a thing on YouTube with toys and all that stuff. So we're sending credentials, and the actual credentials are going to look different this year. And this is one of the things that's really exciting. So we are going to introduce RFID technology into both your wristband and your bike tag. And that's going to allow us to do a couple things. Most exciting, I think, as someone who's ridden since the early days, is we are partnering with an organization called Finisher Picks, which is a photo company that is going to be taking pictures all along the route. And their technology allows their cameras to read the bike tag of the photo they're taking. And everybody will be granted access to a website where you can type in your name or your bike tag and see all the pictures that were taken of you from the weekend. And so I know everybody's super disappointed they don't have to search through Flickr, our Flickr album, for hours on end to hopefully find one picture of themselves after ride weekend. But that was a really big change we've been wanting to make for a couple of years. And Chris and Lauren on our team have done really extraordinary work in figuring out how to make that happen for us this year. We're also going to use it for gift distribution. So gifts obviously is something that people have historically picked up with credentials. We're going to have gift distribution at the finish lines. You'll go up, you'll scan your tag, you'll get your gift, and it should be a pretty seamless experience. And then the one other thing, which we are going to start, with the implementation of RFID this year, lets us potentially long-term introduce the idea of tracking riders. And for spectators to be able to track their riders. And so we're not going to introduce that this year. There's a lot of complexity behind the scenes that goes into that, but that is a hope of ours, is that every spectator has the experience where they can follow their riders throughout the day and throughout the route. And introducing the RFID this year in a couple small ways is going to let us hopefully get there pretty soon. Okay. Let's go to the next poll. Bikes, volunteers, SAG support.
The final one.
We can make this the last poll and then we'll just go through. SAG support. So SAG vehicles, support and gear, typically the vans that are riding around on the route, helping people with flat tires, busted bikes, busted knees, elbows, all sorts of things. So we are going to have SAG support. We are going to limit SAG support to sort of one person in the van, one participant in the van at a time, unless they're of the same household. They're going to be sitting in the back, the windows are going to be down, and we're going to be cleaning them. And so, there's not a material change from the support people will be receiving, but potentially a change from how, we need to sort of beef up the amount of SAG vehicles out on the route and things like that. Let's do bikes and then we'll do volunteers. So we have gotten a bunch of questions about the type of bikes that are allowed. And I had the opportunity to ride an e-bike recently and it was life-changing. It was so fun. So we allow all non-motorized bikes, including recumbent bikes. We do not allow trailers and child seats. So no sort of children riding on the back of your bike. That's a big no-no. We do allow e-bikes. And so we follow some of the same e-bike rules that the state of Ohio follows for bike trails. So I'm going to read it to you because I don't want to mess it up. So no fully motorized bikes which use a throttle are allowed. All electric bikes must have a freely operable pedaling system, including a rear wheel drivetrain, pedals, crank, chain, and gear system. So that's the answer on e-bikes. I rode an e-bike recently that went 30 miles an hour, and it was like, you could do Pelotonia in no time on that thing. And then volunteers. So I know this is a big thing hanging out there, and it's a question our team's getting a lot. So we're going to actually need more volunteers than we have in previous years, and we're going to have more shifts available. And so this gives people the opportunity to volunteer more, 2 days if they want. But we will have more shifts. We are going to open roles on the website. May 26th is our target date. And so one of the things that's been delaying that is really figuring out how we need to be staffing, these things appropriately. And so May 26th is the date we have circled, and we will sort of follow masking and gloves rules sort of as appropriate by volunteer role. But I think the big thing out of that is May 26th. That's a date you can circle on your calendar and get ready for volunteer roles and shifts and blocks and all of that stuff. So with that, I think we can stream through to some of this Q&A, or we can get to the routes. And so we've got a fun video. We're going to capture all these Q&A, the questions that are in the chat, and we can figure out the best way to communicate them. But there's a lot of demand in the chat for routes I'm seeing. So yes, restrooms will be available for spectators. Okay, so we, for the first time, have changed routes since 2012. This is a really exciting process for our team. It is it was the first time I've ever been a part of it. It is not easy by any measure. It was really fun, and our team threw together a really fun video to highlight the routes, and then we'll talk about them after the video. All right, so we've got some really fun new routes. I know there was a question about sort of the removal of the 25 and 45. We ended up with a 20 and a 50. That is just sort of how the roads ended up going in where we ended up this year. So we've got 20, 50, 80, and 100 on Saturday. We've got 20, 50, 100 on Sunday. 20 and 50 are the same experience as Saturday as on Sunday. I personally think Sunday is going to be pretty amazing. It's new for a lot of people to sort of have the Friday night experience and then to be able to ride on Sunday. So I'd encourage people to check out Sunday or think about changing to Sunday if they're willing to do that. So quick overview of the routes. All of the routes will have the first 20 miles, same first 20 miles. So a big change is we're going to go through the community of Bexley, which Dr. Cohn, I know, is your home, your hometown. So this was really born out of just a lot of community feedback that we've received over the years, and feel like, from a wanting to do some things for the 50-mile route that going this direction made the most sense for us. But we're really excited to see what the city of Bexley, the city of Bexley, comes out with. We'll go over by the airport, up through Gahanna, and then finish in New Albany. So New Albany is going to become even more of a central focal point. The 50. So one of the things we really wanted to do was to give as many people as possible the Granville experience. And anybody that's had the opportunity to ride in the past and ride through the village of Granville knows that it's sort of one of the most seminal moments of the weekend. And so we wanted to put more people through that route. So we designed the 50-mile route to go through Granville and then back. You will see the rest stop there, just coming outside of Granville, which is the final rest stop before you head back to New Albany. That's the intermediate school, which has been a stop historically in the past. It has not been a stop the last couple of years, but provides a lot of interesting options for us because there's sort of different entrances and exits to that, and lets us sort of send people back to New Albany to do a 50, but then send people out to do the 100 route. The 80 and the 80, so there's two options for the 80 and the 100. Let's just go to the 100 so that, and I can explain what the 80 is. So the 100-mile routes are from downtown to Gambier. The 80-mile routes simply just start in New Albany. So they don't have that first 20 miles. So this is the less hilly route. This has historically been the Bennington Chapel route. We are, one of the things we're able to do because we're getting to Granville about 30 miles sooner than we historically have, meant we're able to find a ton of new roads. And so this is about, from a difficulty standpoint, about the same as Bennington Chapel was. It's not a cakewalk, but it is very doable with some training, just like the historical route, and then the more hilly route. And so potentially this one could be called the more very hilly route. Carolyn, if you want to go to that next slide. More hilly. So definitely more hilly. We hit Reynolds Road much earlier, and then we get to go explore some areas that we've never been, including, I think it's Bladensburg out there. And then we go up and around through Danville and get to experience actually some of the ride that has historically happened the morning of day 2, coming out of Kenyon. And people who've had the chance to ride that part of the route knows that it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of country out there, and wanted more people to experience that. So this is certainly a challenging route. There's 4,600 feet of climbing in total through the route. Historically, we've seen about a quarter of the people go the Reynolds Road route, and 75% of the people go Bennington Chapel route. So we wanted to design an experience that was new and fun and challenging, and I think our team has succeeded in that. I will say I have not personally gone out to ride this yet. Several of our colleagues have driven it, and in a car, they said it seemed like it would be challenging on a bike. So
you want to get back to that e-bike comment that you
yeah,
made.
This is where an e-bike would really come in handy. And then I think you got a couple more. The Sunday 100-mile loop. So what we wanted to introduce on Sunday, because we were not having overnight stays for the 200-mile riders, is just a different experience. And so we didn't want to sort of send you from downtown to Kenyon and then do it all over again downtown to Kenyon. So we're doing a loop. This is also a single day option where people can, arrive in New Albany, park their car, and their car is waiting for them at the finish line. And, instead of a point-to-point route, this is a true loop. This route will go actually up the backside of Reynolds Hill and down what we have typically gone up in Reynolds Road. So this is a really fun ride. It's typical of day 2. Historically, it does have some nice descents and downhill, a little less elevation gain, but I think this is going to be a really fun ride. These are a lot of roads that people that train out in New Albany and sort of Hartford and Granville area are very familiar with. So really excited about that. There's a question about deciding which route you take. Yes, so there is a split in the route. I don't know the exact mile marker off the top of my hands or top of my head, but there are two big signs, and it says hilly route, less hilly route. Some people don't pay attention to that, and so we put another set of signs a little further down the road where you have a second chance to rethink your decision. But you do not have to choose prior to the day. And I think that is what we had for people. So I'm gonna scroll through this.
Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second with a couple themes that came out there, just asking about whether or not the comments that were made are absolutely set in stone, or if changes in circumstances in either direction could influence everything we just talked about today. Obviously, we can't predict the future, and things do change though.
Yeah, so definitely we are not in the business of predicting the future. The way we are planning is because of the amount of people we have and the experience we really want to deliver to people, we have been planning under the stated current guidelines sort of all along the way and not trying to guess what they are. We have evolved these plans every single week. We've shared them with you every other week, and every single time we've gone through that, it's been a different version. There have been tweaks and updates as things change. We will continue to do that up until the morning of the ride as guidelines change. We're going to follow the guidelines, but we're not going to sort of stick ourselves in the Stone Age, so to speak, using guidelines from last year or something. So we're going to remain current. We're going to evolve. We are going to deliver the best experience we can under the circumstances. And now they're starting to come in. All right. The 80-mile route on Saturday does not go through Gahanna. So Gahanna comes before New Albany. So you would start in New Albany and then take that. Location for the start of the 80-mile ride, that is TBD. We've got obviously a number of start sites that we can use in New Albany. New Albany sets up incredibly well for us to do this, and with just the amount of spaces we have to utilize. So routes will be available for download. They will not be available for download this minute. There's a couple roads, small little segments that we are making tweaks to, but we want to get the GPX files out to the community so that people can go out and explore them. Other Sunday distance options besides the 100. So yes, there's a 20 and a 50, which are just repeats of the same route from Saturday. Okay, well, perfect. We did it in under an hour. That was good. So what I would say is we have this scheduled for I think the second week of June and also the second or third week of July. I anticipate those will be a lot of the same things we talked about evolved with an evolution. And so I don't necessarily think this is something everybody needs to come to everyone, but I think the July version of this town hall is going to really lay out most likely what you can expect to see on ride weekend. And my hope is that it looks, even more close to the experience everybody's used to than what we shared today. But obviously we just, from the bottom of our team's hearts, and I know all the doctors, researchers, nurses, patients at the James, we're really excited to get back out on the road this year. It's been a long 2 years, and it feels like Pelotonia can bring some semblance of normalcy back to the community. And so we have been sort of overwhelmed just with the support the community continues to give us, the support the community continues to throw behind us. We are always open to feedback. And, we are your organization. So, we say this a lot internally, but, we're owned by the community, and we're here to create an experience for all of you to do something in the fight against cancer. So we can't thank you enough. We can't wait to deliver a very memorable experience to you this year, and hope to see everyone out on the road soon.